Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for a Tax Practitioners Board webinar. My name is Loon Lak, and I'm joining you from Gadigal country. I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, waters, and community. I would like to pay my respect to them, their cultures, and elders past and present. To begin, I have a few quick housekeeping messages. First, you may notice that we're using a new webinar provider. We heard your feedback and can now open our webinars to a larger audience and have additional functionality available to support your engagement and interaction. You can access the slides in the platform today, or you can also obtain a copy of the slides by visiting our webinar resource hub at tbb.gov.au/webinar hub. Today's webinar counts towards your continuing professional education or CPE, and you can claim 1 hour for attending. In relation to claiming your CPE, we will issue an attendance certificate to those staying on for the duration of the webinar. Today's webinar is designed to help you better understand common cybersecurity issues and learn practical ways to improve your security and reduce risk. We'll also discuss your compliance obligations in relation to Code Items 6 and 7 and how this relates to cybersecurity. The ATO will join us to explain the evolving features of the ATO app, including secure messaging, account unlocking, and ways to safeguard client data while ensuring you have secure access. Then we'll open the floor for any questions you may have. To ask questions, simply type your questions into the Q&A panel. You can also use the chat function to interact with other participants, but if you do need a response from us, make sure you use the Q&A. We do have a large audience today, so we may not get to all of your questions during the session. However, we'll publish answers to FAQs asked on our webinar resource hub. So check our website for the updates. Now, I would like to introduce our speakers. Today, we're joined by TVB's Chief Technology Officer, Craig Woodburn, along with Jill Matheson and Ross Day, both directors at the ATO. Welcome to all. I'll now hand over to Craig to kick things off.
That mute button takes just a second to come off, doesn't it? Thank you so much, Lun, and a very good afternoon to you all. We have a lot to cover today, so let's begin with a basic definition of what a cyber attack is. A cyber attack is when someone uses technology to break into computers or networks. It's usually to steal or damage or disrupt. These attacks can cause serious problems, and not just for businesses and governments, but also for individuals. If we go to our next slide, please. So why does cybersecurity matter? You might think I'm a small business or a sole trader, cyber criminals wouldn't target me, or perhaps cybersecurity is a problem that only IT people can handle. Well, the truth is that cybersecurity actually affects every organisation, large or small. And in fact, smaller businesses are often even more vulnerable. As tax practitioners, you actually hold a huge amount of personal information on your clients. Cyber criminals might target you and your practices just to steal your data or to commit identity fraud or perhaps launch ransomware or other malicious attacks. Cybercrime's rising, threats are more sophisticated, and it's no longer a question of if, it's often a matter of when. Why? It's because we live more of our lives online, and this has really been accelerated by the pandemic. Cybercrime is also big business. The average cost of an attack for a small business is $40,000, and beyond financial loss, breaches often cause downtime, data loss, and I think most importantly, reputational damage. According to the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, a cybercrime is reported every 6 minutes, and ScanWatch data shows the main delivery methods for these attacks are smartphones and email, tools that we all rely on. Importantly, for us here today, the finance industry consistently ranks among the sectors with the most data breaches. And unlike large companies, small business breaches rarely make headlines, but the impact that they can have is devastating. And as you can see, cybersecurity is something we all need to address. So today, you'll learn some practical steps to protect your practice. So please be encouraged. You can actually address cybersecurity. We really aim to help educate you today to help you. Okay, it wouldn't be a TVB webinar if we didn't talk about the code of professional conduct. So let's take a quick look at the relevant items of the code in the context of cybersecurity. So let's first look at code item 6, which is particularly relevant to cybersecurity. Under code item 6, you must not disclose any information relating to a client's affairs to a third party unless you've obtained both their permission, either their permission or that there's a legal duty for you to do so. Where there's a breach of confidentiality as a result of a cyber incident, we'd need to then consider the IT controls that you had in place to determine what administrative sanctions, if any, should be imposed. So a cybersecurity breach from your carelessness effectively could be a breach of this code item. You must ensure that you have appropriate arrangements in place to prevent inadvertent disclosure of client information through recklessness. Now let's move on to code item 7, which states that you must ensure that a practitioner service that you provide, or that one that's provided on your behalf, is provided competently. So why is this code item relevant? It's because if tax practitioners lack sufficient IT controls, or they take a careless approach to cybersecurity, the Tax Practitioners Board might determine that you've not provided that service competently, and therefore breaching the code as a result. Each situation is assessed individually to determine compliance. In the interest of time, we won't cover sanctions today, but we'll share more information after the webinar if you'd like to know more. Now let's break down the most common types of cybersecurity threats. Understanding common cybersecurity threats is essential when considering the particulars of your business and your information systems. Some key threats that you may encounter include business email compromise, where malicious actors compromise an organisation via email, phishing, the practice of sending fraudulent messages that look legitimate, usually sent by email. I'm sure we've all had those. Malware, malicious software designed to harm, often disguised as legitimate software or friendly software. Ransomware, where you could have your data locked until a ransom is paid. Imposter scams, where criminals pose as trusted individuals or organisations to steal money. Plenty of us have seen them. I certainly have many times over. Identity theft, where stolen personal information is used for financial gain. Data breaches, where unauthorised access or disclosure of sensitive information occurs. Or hacking, where where systems are exploited or networks are exploited to steal data, or perhaps even just to disrupt your operations. We won't cover all these in detail today. I'd rather look at how we can help you address these risks, but we'll send you a link with some more information after the webinar. So let's now move on to how we can help you keep safe. I understand this might seem a little overwhelming, so let me share some practical, everyday tips to help you stay safe and protect your clients' data. The most valuable tip from the TPB's perspective is to be proactive. So, these are some of the things that TPB considers to be best practice. Firstly, install and maintain antivirus and anti-malware on your computers. That should be really obvious, shouldn't it? If you're a Windows user, the built-in Microsoft Defender system, as long as you've got updates enabled, is recognised by experts as being one of the most capable choices you can make. It detects over 99% of attempted attacks. Secondly, enable your firewalls on your devices. The built-in Windows firewall is great. It's a solid choice. If you're not using Windows, just make sure that you do have a firewall enabled. Keep your systems and software updated and enable automatic updates whenever you can. Thirdly, use multi-factor authentication whenever you can, preferably via an authentication app rather than SMS, because somebody could take over your phone or borrow your phone, and then they've got access to your SMS messages potentially. On this one, I was really quite intrigued. I remember a study done by Microsoft where they determined, they worked out that multi-factor authentication blocks a whopping 99.9% of automated cyber attacks and 96% of phishing attempts, and even 76% of flat-out targeted attacks. So multi-factor authentication is a massive protection. Finally, limit access-based roles. Ensure employees only have the access that they need. This is not an issue of trust. We all trust our staff, but it's about reducing damage if somebody's account manages to get compromised. There's no point in putting all your eggs in one basket. So some other things that we can do include encrypting and sensitive information, to be careful with email attachments, links, and calls from unknown numbers. Always verify before you click or respond. Train your staff to avoid opening links or attachments that they're not expecting. Use separate personal and business computers, devices, and accounts to reduce risks. Download software only from trusted sources, never from unknown websites. And never share usernames or passwords. We'd even recommend using a password manager to store your credentials securely. The days of having your password written on a Post-it note on your monitor, I hope they're well and truly gone. The best starting point, however, that I think would be the best resource that I can possibly impart on you would be the Australian Cybersecurity Centre's Essential 8. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it's the best place to start. You can find this at the Australian Cybersecurity Centre's website, which is really easy to remember. It's cyber.gov.au. You can't miss it on their site. No single set of mitigation strategies could guarantee you protection against all cyber threats, but organisations are strongly encouraged to implement the 8 essential mitigation strategies as just a baseline. That's why the Australian Cybersecurity Centre exists, to help businesses and government in Australia to have cyber safe practices. So this baseline, known as the Essential 8, significantly reduces the risk of system compromise. They've gone and looked at attack strategies that people use, and they worked out ways to make sure that you can protect yourself from them. These prioritised mitigation strategies help organisations defend themselves against being targeted by internet-connected threats. The Essential 8 strategies, in a nutshell, there's 8 of them, as I said. Application control, and this is simply an approach where you can have a list of a defined list of trusted applications that are allowed to run on your computer, and people can't just download and run extra programs. So it's stopping programs that you don't know about or aren't sanctioned from running. The second control is to patch applications. We've already talked about that. Just make sure you have your automatic updates enabled on your patching, and I think you'll be well and truly doing well in this area. The third one is to configure Microsoft Office macro settings so that you restrict macros from running when people receive them via emails, particularly. This is quite a risk that people used to have more before people protected themselves from this one, but someone would send you a macro-enabled Word document or an Excel spreadsheet, and before you know it, it's gone and emailed everybody in your network with with some sort of malware or other attack. The scenario that you might have seen where everybody receives an email from someone you know with something dodgy in it, that would often be a macro attack that's caused that. Fourthly, the fourth item of the Essential 8 is user application hardening. And this is where we harden our applications and operating systems to use the best security features to protect ourselves from cybersecurity or cyber criminals, sorry. For example, we might harden our browsers to not allow downloading of executables. That might be one item there. But there are guides for each one of these eight, on the Australian Cybersecurity Centre's website. Fifthly, restrict admin privileges. We talked about this a minute ago. This is where if we have people, if not everyone needs to be able to administer your SharePoint or your drive where you store information in your practice, don't give everybody that access, and only give the people who absolutely need it that access. This is simply about limiting the number of accounts and number of people in an organisation that have the keys to the kingdom. The sixth item on the list is patch operating systems. Very similarly to patching your applications, you need to patch your Windows or your Mac OS or your Linux operating system to make sure that it's up to date, because there are vulnerabilities that pop up every week, and making sure that you have the latest patches will ensure that you're protected against those vulnerabilities. The seventh item, multi-factor authentication, we've already talked about, but it requires multiple forms of authentication or verification when you log into something. So usually it's a password or a code from a mobile app, might be two items that you might use. And as I said, Microsoft report over 1,000 password, well, I didn't tell you this detail. Microsoft report over 1,000 password attacks on their systems per second. And their average, their research indicates that MFA reduces the risk that you'll be compromised by a whopping 99%. So massive reduction in risk just by implementing multi-factor authentication. Finally, the last one. If everything else doesn't protect you, your last line of defense is to have a backup. And if you have a backup and you've been attacked, at least you can actually restore things back to the way they were before you were attacked. So backups are essential. They're your last line of defense and perhaps one of your most important. On that note, I think I'd better hand over to Jill to talk about the ATO app security features. There's some exciting changes that have recently happened. Jill.
Thanks so much, Craig. I think I put my mic back on successfully, so that's great. Hi, everyone. My name's Jill Matheson. I'm a director in the Individuals and Intermediaries Engagement and Support branch, and I'm currently looking after tax practitioner consultations for the Counter Fraud program. And I brought with me Ross Day, who is a director in Digital Delivery Solutions and our subject matter expert for what we're going to show you today. I think this is a great pairing, and talking off the back of Craig's talk on cyber hygiene, and as we get into some of the bits about what we're doing into the app, it's also a good reminder that as ATO hardens our borders and our front door, that we know that criminals are going to look elsewhere and put effort elsewhere. So it's really important to make sure we're all protected against this. So I might go on to the next slide, thanks. And just wanted to put this into a little bit of context. If you're not familiar with the Counter Fraud program, like all organisations, Australia and globally, the ATO is witnessing a growth in identity crime-enabled fraud and scaled fraud attacks. The attacks are agile, prolonged, persistent, and further amplified by data breaches. I think most of us are starting to, if it hasn't happened to ourselves, it's happened to someone we know. The ATO is committed to protecting the Australia's revenue and taxpayers' personal information, supporting fraud victims and holding fraudsters to account. The Counter Fraud Program is a 4-year program which will help bring the external fraud risk into tolerance by strengthening our ability to detect, prevent and mitigate fraud against the tax, super and registration systems. I do note that the program is made up of 6 smaller projects. That's just to assist delivery. What we're showing you today, and more broadly, all of our deliverables are part of an interconnected web of strategies to counter fraud. So although we're showing you one little component, there is a lot of mechanisms happening in the background to really protect against those complex, agile and persistent fraud attacks against the tax, super and registry systems. Overall, as you can see on the screen, it just shows you that we started at a point of being quite reactive, and we're looking to move to a much more preventative and detective approach, which will identify fraudulent activity before it occurs in real time or in real time. And we'll always have that reactive, that mitigation strategy in case things do happen. We recognise the important relationship between tax practitioners and taxpayers and really want to support that. And as I mentioned before, that little element of, as we harden our controls here at the ATO, we know that the efforts from fraudsters may move into other spaces. Other countries have already reported to us that they're seeing efforts moved into the business and tax practitioner space. And so that's why it's so critical that we do the things that Craig's already suggested to keep our cyber hygiene very strong. Of course, as our environment evolves, we'll continue to respond with a strong focus on taxpayer protection and ensure our multi-layered fraud controls remain responsive and effective. But I think that's all the background. I'm going to hand you over to Ross, who's going to start giving us the good stuff and introducing us and showing us through what's happening in the ATO app. So Ross, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Gillian. Hello, everybody. I'm hoping you can hear me.
Clear, Ross. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I do have a little bit of a spinning circle, so I can't see the slides on the screen, but I can still talk to them. I think we're on slide 3 at the moment. So what we have done, as Gillian said, we want to shift to the left on how we identify fraud, identify it earlier. So what we have done is we've modelled what the banks have done. We know the banks have best practices, and we're using the ATO app as our line of defence. We know people trust apps. You have to authenticate into the app to view something, unlike things like an SMS message that can be spoofed or have a dangerous link in there, and similar to emails. So what we've done is, and we'll show you in more detail shortly, in June, we released the ability to send a secure message in an authenticated session of the ATO app. And what that does is, in a couple of seconds of an update happening on our systems, we will let the client know that it's happened. And then, similar to your banks, if they are cautious, they're not sure about the transaction that's happened, then they can lock their record down, similar to the way that you can lock down your credit card, and use that as a bit of a circuit breaker for protection. In September, which we'll show you as well, we enhanced the ability for BAS agents to see some of those app messages in the communication history. And we also introduced something about being able to self-serve to also unlock your record. In November, again, I will expand on it a bit further, but we've improved the visibility of some of the things the agent can see around a client locking their record, or whether they're registered. And we added some new post-transaction secure messages as well. Probably the key thing to be aware of is it's important, similar to the way the banking app works, you need to register your app with the ATO first. So we collect some details, your mobile phone, your email. We ask you to verify via a one-time passcode, and then we store that information. Important to note that the email and the mobile phone that we use to register your app is not stored on our client register, so it's kept separately. So we aren't overriding any information that an agent has put on the client record, and it's not there for a malicious actor who gets into online services to change and then hide the transactions are happening. Next slide, please. So a bit of a case study today. We have John. John has registered themselves with the ATO app, and at 5:30 in the evening, he receives a message advising that there's been a change to his bank account details by his registered agent. It's out of hours. He can't call the ATO, can't call his agent, but he needs to do something. So we will show you a little bit about the steps that John can take. So slide 5, please. So here's a scenario of the experience when there is a change made on a client's record. But as I said, this happens within a couple of seconds. Once the change is committed in our back-end systems, the client will get a message from us within 1 or 2 seconds. So you can see there, they get a push notification first. That's the little ding you get on your phone to let you know that you have a secure message. Important to note that the push notification is not considered a secure channel, so we need to be a little bit general. We need to be general about what we put into that push notification. We can't put actual information like a bank account detail in there. But you can see here in this case, John goes in, he has his face biometric set up, he authenticates into the app. He now knows he's in an authenticated session. He has confidence that he really is looking at information that the ATO has sent him. And you can see there's an unread message in his list of messages that says, hey, you've had some bank account details updated by your agent. He clicks on that, and then you can see the message. Now, the message is tailored a little bit, depending on whether an update was made by your agent or whether it was made by somebody in online services for individuals. In this case, we're using an example where it was made by an agent. And you can see here we provided the information about the change. And we've also got a little bit of a message there to say, hey, if you didn't authorise this update, have a word to your agent. And what we learnt during user testing, if they recognise the transaction and the agent, happy days. If they recognise the agent and not the transaction, well, then they would look to call their agent, say, hey, what's quite happened here? And of course, the last scenario is they view their agent details and they have no idea who this agent is, what's going on here. And that is when they would look to lock their record immediately. In this case, John hasn't been aware. Record, it's caught him a little bit by surprise. So he feels the need to give himself some safety and lock his record down so he can talk to his agent the next day. So what we will do in this case, John's decided to lock his ATO record, and we take John on a little bit of a journey. Next slide, please, guys. Now, you notice on the lock here, we have put a little bit of friction in here. So the idea of a bit of friction in the journey is we didn't want somebody to just click a button once or panic and then lock down their record, because it does have some consequences when you lock down your record. So we take them on a little bit of a journey to understand the impacts. So in this case, to lock their record, you can see there on the second screen, there's something there to say, hey, you know, just check, you need to lock your record, understand the impact before you do it. And then again, you can see we've provided some information there, lets them know, you know, once you lock your record, you are going to be kicked out. You won't be able to use record. Important to note that any refunds that you've got that are about to issue, they're not going to issue. We're going to there is a message there that they can unlock. I will talk about that shortly.
Sorry, Russ, can I just interrupt you for a second there? You keep cutting out your audio. Okay. If you can just keep your face towards your speaker, it'll be helpful.
Sure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So, yes, as far as understanding the impacts, we messaged them to say, you know, hey, you have locked your record. That goes to the email that was used to register the record rather than to register the app, sorry. So it's not using their client register data. And again, there's an important dot point there that mentions that if they do have a registered agent, the agent can still manage their tax affairs. So that's really important. These changes and the things that we have done to allow a client to lock their record, they don't change what an agent can do or see in OSFA and software. That is business as usual. So again, lastly, we asked them to just click a little button to make sure they do understand the impacts. of locking their record. It's not a special thing that they're signing or agreeing. It's just, again, part of that friction. And finally, are you sure? And when they hit yes, there you go. You can see a message there on the right to say your record is now locked. So as an example, what that does, if there was, say, for some reason, a fraudster in online services for individuals, it will kick them out of that record. So they now have some safety. No refunds will issue. As I said, it is really important that they ring either their agent or they ring the ATO to discuss what has happened on their client record. So we'll move to the next slide, please, guys. So the next day, John makes the call to his agent and confirms that, yes, these bank account details were updated. Maybe it was a case of an update, say, for Trust bank account details. So John is now relieved. He knows his account is safe. So what he needs to do now is unlock his record because he wants to make sure any refunds can issue that should be coming his way. And he also might want to be able to access online services as well. So if we go to the next slide, guys, we'll show an example of somebody who is unlocking their record. Now, it's really important to note that the ability to self-serve to unlock your record by the ATO app, it's not a free-for-all. We have some rules that we'll use to decide whether or not you can unlock. So rule number one is you can only self-serve to unlock if you locked it in the first place. So for some reason the ATO had seen some suspicious activity and the ATO had decided to lock your record, you would not be able to self-serve to unlock. This is only to remove and unlock that you have initiated. The other piece is to keep us safe and improve their security. You must use the same device that you use to lock to also unlock as well. So if I locked on my iPhone and I tried to unlock on my iPad, if I'm on my iPad, we would give you a message to say, hey, we can see that you're locked. If you need to get back in, please go to the device that you used to unlock. So similarly with unlock, it's important that the client does understand the impacts of what they're doing. So you can see on that second screen, this is a case where they have gone in on the same device. So again, take the time to understand what it means to unlock. So there with the understand the impacts, again, it's really important. If the client still thinks that there has been things happening on their account that should be, they really should be talking to us first before they go unlocking. And again, as we mentioned, this now means that we will release any refunds that we've been holding. We'll start sending you notifications again. And again, just to keep things safe, that email that we use to that you use to register your device will also send you an email there as well to remind you, hey, you've now unlocked your record. What we do mention there as well, a plug for strong digital ID. So going on top of what Craig said, if you, we know we have online access strength now, it's really good if you can protect your record even more by getting strong My ID or even a standard ID. So there's a bit of a reminder there. Again, where we have seen fraud via secure messaging, identified via secure messaging, it hasn't been people who are using a digital ID. So again, they've chosen to unlock their record, and then you can see here, they get their message, happy days, they're back in again. So what that means is anything that we've had in place that was stopping, say, an income tax return processing or an activity statement processing, that is gone. Those forms will process again. Any refunds that we were holding, they will issue again. And again, John can get back into his ATO record as he needs to. Okay, next slide, please, guys. And I'm going to hand back to Jill. Jill loves to talk about communication history.
I sure do. And I think the reason I love to talk about this the most is this came very strongly through our taxpayer consultations, tax practitioner consultations. So Ross has shown you what ATO app users will see. And I really want to suggest everyone download the ATO app for themselves and have a look and a play in that space. But you probably got a bit of a burning question about what will I see as a tax practitioner or a BAS agent? What things are happening for me? So in online services for agents, you will be able to see in the client communication history the messages that John gets. There is a new channel category called ATO app. A lot of the messages, if they're going into the app, you'll see the messages under that category. There's sometimes that some extra messages will go to their email as well, such as when it's locked, when it's unlocked, and where there is someone who has changed their MyGov account. It's called MyGov overlinking. So if there's a change to the MyGov account, it'll not only send a secure message, but send an SMS and an email. So between the ATO app category, email, sometimes even SMS, you'll be able to see what's happening on the app for your client. You'll even be able to see when they registered. So that information is all there. And there's a little bit, I don't want to be too much of a spoiler for you, Ross, but there's a little bit more that we're going to tell you that we've just done on this weekend that's just passed. But I might just take us to our next slide, because I'm hoping, I haven't checked all the questions, but I'm hoping some of you are thinking, all this locking sounds a lot like we know as compromised clients. Are you making these clients into compromised clients? Now, there is some similarities here, and there's some little nuanced differences. A compromised client is where the ATO has initiated the account locks. It's where we put some accounting treatments on, and we do that for people who have had a fraud event or at high risk of having a fraud event. When there is a compromised client, one of the protections that we put on is the need for that client to gain a strong MyID to get access back to their online services, including the ATO app. Practitioner, just to know the little bit of difference, Ross has also mentioned already that if someone goes to unlock or sign in to the app and they're getting an error message, it will tell them why. So if they've locked using a different device and they go in to unlock, and it will tell them that they need to do it on a different device. If it is that they go in, maybe they locked, they've talked to us, we've put on some additional protections, we've maybe even turned them, sometimes we've required them to put on that strong ID, then it will tell them that they need a strong ID to regain that access. So there will be an error message that tells them. So as a tax practitioner, if someone contacts you and says, I can't get back in, it's telling me to do this, you might think to yourself, it's either you're on the wrong device or you need a strong ID. And if in doubt, they can call the ATO to talk about what's happening. But I'm going to hand back over to Ross about that little sneaky spoiler alert that I mentioned before.
Thank you, Gillian, and your little spoiler alert. So I think it's realised helping clients protect their record, we need a lot of help from our friends in registered agents. So what we have done is, you can see on the client details screen, as we said, we released it this weekend. There are two new indicators there in that red box. So the first one is whether or not someone has registered for the app. So if you see a yes there, that means they've registered for the app, and it means that when there are transactions happening on their account, such as a lodgement of a tax return or changes to bank account details or an overlinking, they will be getting secure messages telling them that that has happened. The other thing that Gillian, as she said, she's very excited about is the account lock status. So now you will be able to tell whether someone has locked their account, and you'll be able to understand the fact that, well, hey, if you see a yes there, it does mean that the client doesn't have access to their online services. It also means that we are holding any refunds. Probably the key thing to call out here is we have different scenarios where a record may be locked. It might have been locked by the client via the app, but as Jill mentioned earlier, the ATO may have seen something suspicious and decided to lock it themselves. We will show the yes indicator regardless of who initiated the lock. So very important to understand, it's not just to show you that the client self-initiated, it's to show you that the record is locked, regardless of who locked the record down. Okay, next slide, please, guys. So we did go live with a couple of new secure messages this weekend as well. So the first one is ABN registrations for someone who becomes a sole trader. So similar to the bank account scenario that you saw, as soon as we register somebody, an individual for an ABN, they will get a ding on their phone, a push notification telling them, hey, you've had an ABN application process, they authenticate into the app. You can see they've got an unread message there, and then we will tell them, hey, you've just had an application for an ABN. It's been processed. If this wasn't you, then please consider locking your ATO record or contacting the ATO. Next slide, please, guys. So we're also doing this for GST registrations and reactivations as well. And again, the same deal. As soon as we register somebody for GST, within a couple of seconds, they'll get that ping on their phone. They go in and authenticate. And a similar scenario, we'll show them that, hey, there's been a GST roll registered against their ABN. Well, some of you may be wondering, why haven't I seen anything about activity statements yet? That is something that we are looking to do for June 2026. The technology that we use that allows us to actually tell somebody within seconds. We've been using that on our mainframe. Our activity statements get processed in a slightly different way, so we've had to do a little bit of tinkering on that. If you think we have forgotten activity statements, please be assured we haven't. That is something that we are looking at doing as well. Okay, Jill, I think I'm handing back to you.
Yeah, I think I get to tell the story. Our story that happened very early on in tax time. So we took you through a hypothetical with John just to show you the screens. But at just past midnight on the 1st of July, which was a Tuesday this year, we saw the app being used in action. So I called this client Freya, not their real name, but it just helps me put a name on it. Freya had already registered their mobile device to the ATO app on the 27th of June. At 12:36 a.m., so long past my bedtime, just after midnight, they got some of those push notifications. The bank account detail was deleted. The bank account detail was updated. And then the 24/25 tax was lodged, all by them. Now, Freya was actually someone who uses a tax practitioner. So that was all very strange. And they knew that they hadn't made those changes themselves. So luckily, she was able to respond quickly. And at 12:40 a.m., they locked their account to prevent further activity. And hopefully that let Freya sleep soundly overnight, because the next day on Wednesday morning, she called the ATO and spoke to the client identity support centre. They confirmed, Freya told them, hey, I didn't make those changes. They also looked through the record and found a couple of amendments that had been recently made for some years. Overall, with that quick action happening, the $10,000 in refunds from the tax refund and the amendments that would have gone out to this unknown bank account was stopped, and the remediation could happen quite quickly. With Freya as well, we talked to her about, hey, maybe we should get you to do a strong MyID to have ongoing access to strengthen your online access strength. And she was able to do that and did it immediately, rejoined her strong MyID to her ATO services and probably some other services as well while she was there, and was able to keep that access. We probably didn't expect that happen so quickly on the 1st of July, but we do know that the 1st of July becomes a bit of that peak season for people trying to commit fraud. I'll also just pop to the next slide, because early in our consultations, we were informed very clearly, and we really appreciate this about the tax profession, is that they tell us what you need, but they requested some fact sheet, not only for themselves to understand the app, but that they could give to their clients. Now, we've updated them since because we added some new features, but there are 2 fact sheets that are available if you just go to ato.gov.au/app. And then there's a tab on the left that will take you to ATO app information for tax professionals. Both sheets have been created in conjunction with tax practitioners. As I mentioned, there was an update to the client fact sheet where it's now just a single page. It does only talk about the security features, and you can certainly talk to your clients about getting those security features. The more visibility they have to things that are occurring on their account, the more we can keep everybody safe. So they're available for you. I think now we're probably at the point of questions. So, Lun, I might, Julie, I might see if you've got some hard-hitting questions for us.
Thank you so much, Jill. And thank you to Ross and Craig. That was a really great presentation. Lots of really good, useful information in there for everyone. And we have had a lot of questions come through. So let's start off. I think I've got, Craig, a question for you, which goes back to your presentation earlier, and just a question around the code. You spoke about, I think, confidentiality in the beginning. So the first question that I've got for you is, can we allow our software service providers access to our computer to help fix software errors?
Good question, Julie. You almost answered it already for me. It is about confidentiality, isn't it? So to comply with Code Item 6, practitioners must not disclose information relating to a client. We already know that. That's what Code Item 6 says. And if you're allowing a third party to access your client's data, well, you're not meeting your legal obligation to do what Code Item 6 says. So my recommendation would be, if you need somebody from a vendor to help you work through your problems on your computer, if you supervised, perhaps you drive the computer, but you don't show them any client information, I think that might be an appropriate way to balance that risk. But yes, certainly, if there was a necessity to show your client details to that vendor, I would be asking the client's permission to provide that visibility that we're talking about.
Great, thank you for that, Craig. Jill, I've got a question that's come through from Richard, and Richard's asking, is the ATO app for taxpayers only, or is it designed to assist registered tax agents as well, or is there another app for agents?
I think that's a really great question. We are on a journey with what we're doing, and Ross will probably add some information to this. We are exploring what we can do in this space. We've started out with taxpayers, which is individuals and sole traders. Some of those features, the more clients that you have that have them, can kind of help protect you in the fact that they will see things happening and will probably call you if nefarious activities do happen, in case it's happening because of someone infiltrating a practice as opposed to just an individual. Let's hope that that doesn't happen. But we are exploring more things that we can offer agents, starting with that agent visibility. But give us a little time. We've got some things up the sleeve, and we're going to explore them further, particularly starting with consultations. Ross, did you want to add anything more to that?
I think you pretty much nailed it, Jill. I think earlier you mentioned the fact that, the journey's not over. The initial focus has been on protecting individuals, but we know that there are other client segments out there, i.e. registered agents and businesses. So we will be looking to shift our focus onto making sure we're ahead of the game and protecting those client segments as well.
Fabulous, thank you both. The next question I've got is again about the ATO app, and I've got someone here saying that it's great that you're educating agents all about the ATO app and locking and all of the stuff that we've spoken about today, but how is the ATO actually educating the clients on the app as well?
Look, I think that's a fantastic question, and it is a work in progress. We have done some communication campaigns about this. We've shared information very widely as we can. We continue to look at more campaigns. We also know that there is some natural attraction to the app at tax time, and we've certainly seen that in the updating and the use and registering in our app. So very much a work in progress. We're not completely relying on tax practitioners, but we do know our taxpayers really listen to your trusted voices. So we're just wanting to combine that with our efforts as well.
Thank you for that, Jill. The next question I've got here has come through from Brian, and Brian's saying, I get many calls every week from unknown numbers. Someone identifies themselves as being from the ATO chasing debts or overdue lodgements. How can they be sure that that's actually what's going on with those phone calls?
Oh, Ross, this I don't know if you want to give us a sneak peek about Verify Call. It is,
Sure,
we kind of have at least one stage happening that will help this, so I'll let you sneak on that one.
So there's two pieces here. So yes, I think it is understood that we have problems where people ring up pretending to be from the ATO and they get information from clients or agents. Or conversely, genuine ATO staff are ringing and clients aren't giving them the information because they're not convinced that they're from the ATO. So again, something similar to what the banks are doing, we are looking at releasing in the first half of next calendar year, something that's called Verified Call for individuals initially. So the idea is if you do get a phone call from the ATO and you're not convinced or you want a certainty that you really are talking to a genuine ATO staff member, we will have a new button in the app called Verified Call. So what that basically does is you can push that button and it will send something to the staff member in the ATO, and the ATO can respond to that, say, put in their name, and we send something back to the client to say, hey, yes, we can verify you really are talking to Ross from the ATO. And again, it's the fact that they are in an authenticated session of the app that gives the client that trust. If they don't receive a message, then, and it times out, we will say to the client, we cannot verify that this person is from the ATO. We suggest that you hang up. So as we said, initially, the first couple of years, we've gone after individuals. I think we know, well, actually, we don't think, we do know that we need to also provide a similar sort of service for both registered agents and representatives of businesses. So that is something that we will be continuing to look at to see if we can provide a similar sort of functionality for both registered agents and representatives of business.
Well, that sounds like a really great initiative. Thank you. That sounds good. Craig, I've got a question from Michael now that I think is probably best suited for you, back to our cyber hygiene topic. Michael's saying, I imagine using the browser password managers can be risky. For example, something like Chrome as opposed to a specific password manager. Could you give a bit of advice on that, please?
Thanks, Julie. I better make sure I answer consistently with the answer I gave Brian on mine. Was it Brian, sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian online. Basically, I think that there are two issues here. One is that some of those password solutions that you get built into your browser aren't necessarily terribly secure, although they have bumped up their security significantly in recent times. Anyone who has the administrative password on that computer or has the ability to access that computer effectively could look at those passwords. So that might not be necessarily ideal. But the other risk is that people might use their Google account, for example, to log on to Google Chrome at work, and that gives them all their shortcuts and their passwords and all that sort of thing at work. And then they go home and they log in with the same Google password at home. And then what happens is all of their work passwords are available on their home computer for anyone who logs in to their browser and can check their passwords in their browser. And sometimes people's home computers are dirty and filthy. They download all sorts of different software to try things out. The kids might download a game, and you don't know what is running on that computer. So that would probably be the best answer for why you wouldn't use that sort of tool in that instance. And my recommendation would be use a commercial or even an open source password safe. There are plenty of them around, lots of them around, and they're much more secure. And you actually have to unlock them as an individual rather than just the person who has access to the computer.
Thanks, Craig. That's really helpful. Okay, I think we'll go back to Jill and Ross now. I've got a couple of questions here for you. First one is from Mark, and Mark's asking, can tax agents lock and unlock client returns?
So at this time, we don't have that functionality for tax agents to lock a record. It's something that's sort of been flagged and being considered, but Ross, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
I think the short answer is, Gillian, at the moment there aren't any plans for an agent to be able to lock down or unlock a client's record.
Thank you. Okay, the next one I have is, would clients be able to lock their account from their ATO online account as well, or only by using the app? So can they do it online or only via the app?
Yeah, this is a feature that is only in the app. Sorry, Ross, you go.
So yeah, you've nailed it as always, Gillian. It's only available in the app. The idea of not putting it in online services for individuals is that is where the weak link has been, where people have been able to get into MyGov and then create a new record and get into your online services for individuals. So we are not putting the ability to lock or unlock in online services for agents. We want you to register with the app and use the app as your tool to keep you safe.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, I've got a question from Jane. Jane's asking, well, she's saying, I don't understand where the MyGov app stops and this ATO online one starts. Any advice for Jane there?
Look, I'll use probably a pretty poor analogy here, Jane. MyGov is a doorway or a gateway to lots of government services. So it's the first step in, and then it connects to the ATO online. So you can use a MyGov credential to go into the app, but it in itself is its own little pocket, a front door, a foyer, and then it can connect into other services such as ATO online, or people use it for Medicare or Centrelink, lots of other online services. Ross, do you have a better way of explaining that than I do?
I think your doorway analogy is good, Gillian. It is your doorway. If you want to actually view your actual tax information or make changes to your tax information, then it's the ATO app that you are using, not the MyGov app.
Perfect, thank you both. Okay, the next question I've got here is from Ken, and Ken's asking, if you don't have a password, how can a person increase their security to strong? Not sure who's best placed to answer.
I think on that one.
Oh, sorry, I did read that incorrectly. Passport. You're right. Thank you. You're on to me, Jill.
So I'm happy to take this one, Gillian. So there's a couple of things here. So at the moment, that is correct. You do need a passport to get to strong. There are things happening where, as far as the photo recognition is concerned, they're looking to also be able to add driver's licenses to allow people to get a strong MyID. And obviously that will greatly increase the number of people who can achieve strong. I believe Western Australia has signed on, but at the moment I'm not sure when the other states are coming. So that's probably the first bit, is to get a strong ID. We are hoping to be able to use driver's licenses instead of just a passport. Probably the second thing is, don't dismiss the protection that you get with a standard MyID as well. As I mentioned, at the moment, any fraud where clients have phoned us from a post-transaction secure message, it hasn't been somebody who does have either a standard or a strong. It's been somebody who's just using their plain MyGov to get in. So don't dismiss the fact that a standard MyID is giving you protection. And again, further down the road, we will be looking at trying to get those people who are only a standard MyID back into our systems, the same way you saw with Jill with the strong. There'll probably be a few more extra checks in there, but if you can never ever get strong, that does not mean that you're going to be locked out of our systems forever. We are continuing to work on how we can help the standard users get back.
Great, thanks, Ross. A note that we're just really running short of time and we've got a lot of unanswered questions in there. Hang tight, everyone. We'll get to those. We'll put some Q&A on our website to answer those unanswered questions for you today. But I might just ask one quick one just to finish us off today. And this one's just asking, my clients don't use online services. Does that mean they're more protected?
The short
Jill,
answer
do you want to
is
answer
no.
that one? Or Ross, go? No?
The short answer is no. If somebody has enough information to create a MyGov record for you, a scammer or a fraudster, whether they've done it from some of these privacy breaches, and they have enough information to link to the ATO, they can do it. So that is certainly not a level of protection. In fact, the way we're going with the app, I'd almost say it's the opposite, because if they don't have the app, they can't see if there are things happening on their record.
Great, thank you. That's really good to know. Okay, so just in the interest of time, I'll finish off now and give just a little bit of information on how to stay in touch. So if you do want more information and to keep up to date, visit our website at tpb.gov.au. You can also follow us on socials. We're on LinkedIn and Facebook. We've also got a newsletter which we send out monthly, which is TPB e-news, and you can subscribe to that on our website just by going to tpb.gov.au/newsroom. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you do so, you'll receive notifications when we post new videos, and we do record all of our webinars, so there's a really comprehensive library there available to you, and you can claim CPE as well for viewing those videos, so that's great as well. You can also connect with the ATO via their website, which is ato.gov.au, and we'll share some links as well after the session today on where to get some more information on everything that we have talked about today. So just wanted to say big thank you to both Jill, Ross and Craig as well for your insights today. It's been really helpful, and I think everyone's got some really valuable information as well from you all. So just the last thing today as well, we will be launching an exit survey. So that just pops up in your browser, and we'd really appreciate it if you could just take a moment to complete that. It's very quick, just gives us some insights into how you found today's session, any way we can improve. And also, if you are interested in particular topics, just let us know in that survey, and we'll endeavour to incorporate those into our webinar program as well. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we do hope that you have a good rest of the day. Thanks everyone. Talk to you soon.